for so long, especially in the band, it was like every album got bigger and every tour got bigger, and it was like always growing. And I think when I went to make the first record, it was kind of freeing because I felt like, well, I don't have to do this anymore. You're still like, well, if the last band thing was this and then your first thing is
everyone's
this,
lined up to judge. Everyone is
right.
lined up to judge. Like you come out with that first album and it doesn't smash it. It's like, oh, well, I guess out of the band, it's a no-go, right?
Right.
And so for me, when that album came out, I felt you already were kind of redefining success in your own terms because you went and connected with your audience, it felt to me at least, like in a very real way. Like you went back to trying to really connect with people. Right. You can't connect in a baseball stadium.
Right. That was a thing that I'd always said I wanted to do when we kind of started and when we started doing the music. It was like, kind of said to my manager, like the first tour that I do, I want it to be really small. And then I guess with this one, it was like, I just wanted to have fun. I just wanted to have so much fun.
That's what success is. That's where you landed on the redefinition of success.
Yeah, and one of my friends kind of said, if you're happy doing what you're doing, then nobody can tell you you're not successful. I mean, it's so obvious, but it's also the kind of thing where probably 4 years ago, if someone had said that to me, I'd be like, okay.
No, because you were too busy making everybody else happy.
And also, I guess, when I was in the band, there was a big thing of, because we would make, the last 3 records we made on the road, and I had friends who were musicians who I knew would they would tour, and then they would take 6 months off to go and make the record.
Into a process.
And I used to be like, oh my God.
You can do that?
What, so you're just making, that's it? That's all you're doing.
You're
right
in
now.
room 1607.
You're just making
at the Marriott in Hong Kong, trying to nail a
like
vocal.
4 mattresses and one over the top. Yeah, exactly. On the last 2 tours as well, we bought this like old surveillance van and converted it into a studio so it would follow the tour around. So like at the venue, you'd go into this tiny little surveillance van that had no air conditioning.
What, you and One Direction would go in the back, we'd recorded songs in the back of a van on the road.
So we had
That's
this,
the bossiest shit.
yeah.
So people are walking past the van, they've got no idea.
Well, it'd be like in the venue.
In the venue, right, okay. Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's fun to record it like that. It's just a totally different process.
The album starts with Golden, which is like, you said before, that vulnerability is the way to great friendship, and I feel like that song establishes that. I mean, there's a lot of like, I know you're scared, but man, I'm just gonna tell you the truth. I feel like that's what that song is about. It's kind of, and it sets the stall out for the album too. It's a very personal album.
Golden, we wrote on day 2 of being in Shangri-La. That was kind of like, and immediately as soon as we'd done it, it was like, oh, this is track 1.
You knew it.
Right.
I love that feeling. It's one of the best parts of making a record is making the track listing up as you go.
Because I always end up with track 1 and the last track. And then you're like, okay, let's see what.
So you knew Fine Line would be the last track?
Yeah, as soon as we
Did you know it was the album title as well?
No.
It's such a powerful piece of music. We can skip to the end if you want. That's like, that is one of my favorite songs of the year. I mean, that's a stunner, man.
Golden came really early, and then I used to drive from here to the studio and listen to it. And it's kind of like, as soon as we had it, Golden was like the perfect PCH song.
Magic.
You know, it's like driving down the coast. It was just, that is what the song is for. Like, it feels so Malibu to me, that song.
I heard that the first person you played the full album to was Liam Gallagher. Is that true? One of the first people?
Yeah, I guess by accident, I guess.
So what happened?
Well, he was in, we were working in a studio in London, and he was in, we were kind of trying to finish up, and he was in the studio next door. He came in at, well, I can't remember how it happened, but he kind of just ended up.
The first time.
Yeah, it was the first time. He kind of just ended up in there listening, which was crazy. You know, I was a massive Oasis fan growing up. And then he invited us all over to go listen to his record, and we listened, and we all like had fish and chips and talked and stuff, and he's cool.
I'd imagine Watermelon Sugar would have been a standout for him. I don't know why. It just kind of feels like that's his vibe.
That was, I don't even know if we, yeah, maybe we played in that. But none of that stuff was finished. I don't think that had horns on it yet.
Right.
Lights Up, I don't think was written. Lights Up, Adore You, Treat People, and yeah, those 3 I think hadn't been done yet. They were all like the last week, basically.
Watermelon Sugar, which at this point is out, and you performed on SNL, and everyone's kind of figured out what it's about. The joys of, mutually appreciated oral pleasure.
Is that what it's about?
Is it?
I don't know.
That's what everyone's saying.
Oh.
Always good to
Crazy.
leave it open to interpretation.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's something that just seems to kind of have followed you around, that idea of you not just being a sex symbol, but that a lot of your music is inspired by this.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah, I reckon. But I actually wanted to ask you a genuinely serious question about that, because people throw it around like it's fodder, but it is actually awkward, right? Like, how do you feel sometimes when people seem very focused on you in that light?
In all honesty, I'd say I try and think about it as little as possible, because it's a very strange, dynamic thing. It's also like a weird thing to think of about yourself.
Totally.
Like, I guess the thing with like sex in general is like, it used to feel so much more taboo for me to even like when we're in the band, like the thought of people thinking that I had sex was like, oh no, that's crazy. Like, what if they know? But it's like,
Yeah.
It's so, even just like coming into this record, I wanted to feel a little less like guarded with stuff. I wanted to feel a lot freer and just more joyful and like honest. And I think a lot of the time with like, when there's like tabloid stuff, for example, of like people breaking up and, it's like, I think people forget that there's like a person who's also broken up with someone, which is sad. Like,
Yeah.
you get sad when you break up with someone.
Yeah. It feels to me, this album in part, and excuse me if I'm being too personal, but based on the music, it feels like a breakup record in some respects. There's one particular song, like it's a song called Cherry, which is crazy. I mean, cutting right to it, with some real imagery of losing someone to someone else, and there still being that remnant of your relationship moving into a new space, which is right at the core of heartbreak. I mean, that's like one of the most devastating images. If you're lucky enough to get your heart broken, that's one of the most devastating images you can go through. And you're also quite specific, in terms of, it feels to me like it's quite specific in referencing the relationship you've been in.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's a weird one for me because I'm always like, I don't like to kind of explain songs or like kind of explain the meaning behind them and stuff like that. But I think with this record, it's so much more open.
Yeah.
That it's like, but you've told us in the,
Yeah.
like it tells you what it is, I think a thing that I like about kind of definitely where this record went, especially compared to the last one, is like when I start making an album, I don't feel like, oh, I'm making an album that I'm going to put out in December of next year. Or it feels like I just start writing some songs and then I can be as honest as possible. And then the time when you get to decide if you think it's too honest is when you're putting it out. And I never want to like trim that stuff down.
So you never thought for 1 second when you listen back to Cherry later on that we'd be having a conversation or other people would be listening to it, trying to decipher it and how that would make you feel? You felt you wanted to be true to it.
I think I wanted to be true to it. I think the moment that I wrote it, I wanted to be true to the moment that I wrote it and how I was feeling then. And the thing with...
How are you feeling then?
Not great. But I think also in the moment I felt like I was realizing some stuff about, it was all part of like being more open and, not being like, I don't care. It's like, no, like you get petty when something's not going the way that you want. Like you get petty with that stuff. And I think there's something with Cherry where it's like, it's so pathetic, kind of, in a way. The night that I wrote it, we'd been writing for a few weeks and everyone had left the studio. It was me, Tyler, and Sammy, who's our engineer. And we were kind of sitting around talking at like 2 a.m. maybe. And I was saying that I was feeling a lot of pressure because the last record wasn't like a radio record.